Okay, hi everyone. Sorry about that. You heard a little bit of my conversation trying to figure out YouTube Live. I'm showing my age. I don't understand technology, but it should be live and going. Thank you guys so much for joining in. A lot of you have sent questions in that will be definitely answered at the end. If you have anything else that we don't get to, by the end, we'll probably take the first 45 minutes. We'll just go through a little bit of a discussion. Okay, hi everyone. Sorry about that. You heard a little bit of my conversation trying to figure out YouTube Live. I'm showing my age. I don't understand technology, but it should be live and going.
Resilience.
Oh God, I will persevere. This is a perfect test of resilience, and my cheeks are blushing. Okay. Anyway, YouTube Live will have to wait for a bit, but thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for submitting your questions. Today we have Jasmine Spencer, Sabrina Flores, and Gina Lewandowski on the call. Three incredible pros, three of my good friends, and three great people that you're going to want to learn from. So I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves. My name is Michelle Betos. I'm a goalkeeper for Gotham FC. I've been playing pro for a little over 12 years, a couple weird years in there because some leagues folded in the US, but we'll say 12. I love the game. I love the mental side of the game. I think it's why I'm still playing. I think it's why I've had any success I've had in this game. And these three people here really embody that. They're some of the strongest people I've met on and off the field. They have and have had incredible careers, and I think more than anything, I've watched them overcome adversity to be successful. They all have so much success ahead of them, whether it's in the game or coaching, playing. It's just been exciting to watch. And, one of the best things about playing professional soccer is not only do you get to pursue your own greatness, but you get to watch others do it. And it's a really inspiring process. It teaches you things about people, about perseverance, about yourself, about others. And it's an incredible opportunity. So I'm glad you got to listen to them today. Jazz, I'll let you go first, and then Sab and Gina, if you want to follow up, just a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you're doing now.
Okay, I'm Jazz Spencer. I am originally from Long Island, New York. I've literally known Michelle since I was 14. She's one of my best friends. I currently play for Angel City FC, and I'm going into my 11th season in the NWSL. Crazy, crazy.
Amazing. I am Sabrina Flores. I've been teammates with Betos just for a short bit, a little bit over a year now. But I've been kind of seeing her play and in and around the area with her because of off-season training and pickup. And I remember the first time I met her, she immediately brought my attention with how good of a leader she was and how she made me better on the field. So that's just a little side. But yeah, I play for Gotham FC. This is my 5th year entering as a pro, and yeah, I'm from New Jersey.
Awesome. I'd like to echo that from Sabrina about Betos. Awesome individual. I had the honor to play with her this past year. Very short stint with Gotham, but I actually retired in 2021 or 2022, so last year in July, and currently I'm an associate head coach at Lehigh University. But I went to Lehigh University. Actually, I'm born and raised in Coopersburg, Pennsylvania, about Allentown, Bethlehem area. Went to Lehigh University, and then I had a little bit of a career, a little bit of a different career than these girls. I went overseas for a little bit. There was no pro league in 2007 when I graduated, and played in Germany for 12 years, and then came back to the US and played for the NWSL in 2019, and got to meet Sabrina for the first time, and she was killing it. And I was so excited to, she's like my mini me. We joke about that, but just a strong person, individual, and never got to play with Jasmine, but played against her. So it's been awesome being around these girls, and yeah, just excited to be here and share more about the mental side of the game, because I think that's, like you said, Beto, so important.
Yeah, thank you, Gina. Thank you, guys. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of get the ball rolling, easy questions first, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper. And then again, at the end, we have some questions from some of the people watching. But I kind of want to hear from you guys. I think, sometimes you outside looking in, you think somebody's like favorite moment of their career or their highlight, and I think, for me personally, like people always think I scored a diving header and that's my favorite part. And in reality, I hate goals. I can't even like really watch it because I'm like thinking about like what I would have done to save it instead of like enjoying it. But I want to hear from you guys. Like, what's your favorite moment of your career? And there's probably a few, but like one that comes to mind. And anyone can start first. Let's go, Gina. You've had some time to reflect. You just walked away from the game.
All right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like you said, I have a lot of different moments in my career that I really enjoyed. I can't really put a finger to it. I mean, I could say, I won the triple in 2008 or got my call up to the national team. I mean, those are great moments for me. But looking back, I think just the journey that I had and just what the game has taught me overall. I mean, there's all these ups and downs and challenges that I've been through, adversities, but also growing in the game, meeting all these individuals that I've been able to play with, and just really become the person who I am today. But if it's like a specific moment, I remember when I went over to Germany and I had a month-long tryout with Frankfurt, and no one spoke with me. It was kind of an environment that was really challenging to me. But when I finally made the team, one of the girls actually gave me her training jersey. And it was nothing, extravagant, but for me, it was just like that sign of like, okay, this is my first professional contract, the start of to a career that, obviously I didn't realize would go so long, but that for me was a proud moment. And
that's really cool. I love that. What about you, Jess?
Yeah.
If you say when you scored on me, I'll actually I'll kick you off the call.
I'm not gonna lie. One of those goals is and forever will be in my top 5, but I'm not gonna
anyway, continue.
But I have a lot, but I think the one that is like where I had the like best feeling ever in my career was I had tore my ACL in 2019, then COVID 2020. So in the 2021 season, I was trying to finally get back in the swing of things and wasn't finding much playing time at the Reign at the time. So I requested a trade to Houston. And the first game I started for Houston was against the Reign. And I wound up scoring against the Reign in that game on the field where I tore my ACL, and my family was in the audience. And I'd never scored in front of my husband ever. He for whatever reason, is bad luck. We finally broke that curse. So it's just like everything came together in that one moment. And I don't think I've ever felt like more amazing in my life than like that goal. So yeah, one goal has trumped a goal that I scored against you, Mish.
Perfect. I'll take it. I remember that goal. That was one of the very few goals in my career I cheered for. That was an incredible day. All right, Jazz. Sabrina, what about you?
I would have to say that I kind of echo Gina on what she started with. I can't really pinpoint one like specific moment where I was like, wow, this is like a really good moment. I feel like it's going to sound like super cliche, but just like when I'm having fun playing soccer at training or in games, like there's so many moments of like pure joy that I experience. And those are like, when I tap into like that childhood, like Sabrina, that's just enjoying the game, that's when I love it. Or when I'm going out to get coffee or hang out with my teammates, like I just like forget about everything. And those are like my favorite moments. So yeah, I would have to say just like the journey of being a soccer player, whether it's a pro or when I was in college or club, has been like amazing.
Yeah, I want to say to the audience, like I didn't preface anything with them, you know, to say like, hey, don't tell me like this one great moment, like this one soccer thing. You know, I think that there's such a common theme here. And I think if you talk to any, you know, pretty much anyone in the league, like, yes, we all have trophies and championships and big goals, big saves, big blocks, you know, like attached to our name that, you know, are meaningful. They're meaningful in the moment, but they're fleeting. And I think like what you hear here is about people overcoming, people working hard for something and then getting it. You know, Gina like grinded. I've heard Gina's story about Germany. She had an incredible career in Germany. She's very, very humble, but you know, it started with that humble beginning. You know, it started with her having to earn that. And there's something about being in adversity and coming back from it and overcoming it and seeing what you're made of. You know, I remember when Jazzy tore her ACL, you know, we had talked about a little bit about her going to vet school that year, you know, maybe being done with soccer and going to vet school. And I remember the day she tore her ACL, or maybe 2 days later, I said something about vet school and she was like, oh no, I can't go to vet school now. Like I have to play now, because there was a challenge in front of her. There was an adversity in front of her and she knew she had to get past it. Like that's who she is. That's who they are. And I think if you take away anything from this, it's here that it's not about one goal. It's not about one championship. And don't get me wrong, we're all crazy competitive. You know, like you can come to a pickup game, you can come to any game, you know, we're all nuts and we all want to win so badly. But even with that, it's about the other stuff. It's the other stuff is bigger than that one win, that one moment, because it's all the moments, it's everything you pursue along the way. So I hope that you take that away from them. My next question for you guys, Sabrina, I'll have you start this one, is what's your favorite failure? And that, you know, I think that's a little counterintuitive probably for some people to hear, but I think, you know, again, I don't know what they're going to say, so we'll see what happens. But I think you'll understand the question a little more once they answer.
All right. So greatest failure. I like despise the word failure, because in my eyes, I feel like failure is just like a mindset. Like you can have a perspective on anything and think of it as like a failure or like a accomplishment. And if you turn it around, like it's literally just a mindset. So I feel like I want to reframe that question and answer it as like, what's been like my biggest challenge or something that I've had to overcome. And I feel like the thing that comes to mind is probably this year with my injuries. I had some pretty bad injuries and they were like back to back. Like I broke my leg and tore almost everything in my knee back in March. And then one day after being cleared, I did the same thing basically to the other knee. And it was like, I couldn't believe what was happening. Like all doom came over me, but it was like the greatest challenge that I've ever had to face in my soccer career. And I grew so much as a person, as a player. Like I feel like weirdly very blessed to have gone through those injuries, because I don't think I would be where I am today or like appreciate the things that I appreciate today if it wasn't for them.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. What about you, Gina?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Sab hit the nail on its head, and I don't think there's really anything considered failure. I think there's challenges, there's lessons, there's adversities that we go through and that we grow through. And I think everything that we do go through just allows us to learn more about ourselves and our journey. And if we allow ourselves to keep that perspective, like Sab said, and to challenge us to be better. And I've had a lot of adversity over the years, but a lot of things that I personally just couldn't control. I had some injuries, for about a year back in 2013, and that was extremely challenging. Like I had similar experiences through SAB, but also through contracts. A lot of doors had closed in my career, and I had to go through other open doors. But it's just like allowing those challenges to kind of guide my career and just trusting the process. And so I wouldn't say I had a specific failure or challenge or anything like that. But I said, Sab said, just taking that challenge and adversity. And for me too, it's like there were periods in my career where I wasn't playing. And I think that was really hard for me because, how do you deal with that? And this is probably something we'll get into later. But I think that was something that really humbled me and challenged me allow me to learn about myself and who I was as a player, but also as a person, and just to grow alongside of the field and just find value in other things besides soccer. But it definitely helped me grow as a player as well, just through those times of not playing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. One thing they talk about at Soccer Resilience is like you always have a choice. You know, like you said, Sab, too. Like your perspective is a choice. You know, it feels like, oh, you're injured. Oh, you're not playing. Oh, this is going against you. I must feel bad. I must be sad. I must be down because this bad circumstance is happening to me. But in reality, like you just said, like there's a choice. There's a perspective. There's an opportunity even. And it's literally just reframing the way you look at it. Jazzy, what about you?
Yeah, I think kind of pretty much what Sab and Gina said. Just I think tearing my ACL was probably, I would never wish that upon anyone, but I think it was like the greatest thing that could have happened to me because I was going to walk away from the game and could have gone into an amazing profession and started like the next phase of my life. But when I think about what has happened in the last 3 years and what I've been able to contribute to the game for myself and for the next generation, that I wouldn't been in a position to do had I not chose to continue to play after. And I had the perfect excuse. Like I was already in school.
Yep.
I tore my ACL. No one would have given me any grief over, deciding to go to school and not coming back from that injury. But it didn't feel right in my gut. And that's not how I wanted to end my career. And I think going through that and like being able to really, really, really grow as a person in that period of time, like has shaped who I am, forget as a player, just as a person now, and like what I want to do and what I want my legacy to be as a player when I'm actually done playing. And none of that would have happened if I hadn't gone through that. So it's definitely probably my best, greatest failure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I phrased it as favorite failure because I think for me, especially like way earlier in my career, like my biggest, especially I would say like up till college, like my biggest fear was failure. Like I was so scared of failing. Like, what if I fail? And to the point for me where I held myself back, I gave less effort. I gave less dedication. I was less, I allowed myself to almost invest less for fear of failure. So if I did fail, I could be like, oh, well, I mean, I didn't try. Maybe if I gave everything, then I would have won, but I didn't. So I didn't. And so for me, what I always say is my favorite failure is in college. And this is like a whole long story and I don't want to make this thing about me, but I think a good point in this is that when I was in college, I have like so many regrets about college. I didn't invest the way I should have. I mentally, physically, like I didn't put in the work. My days never lined up with what I said I wanted to do. And there's this save that knocked us out of the NCAA tournament my senior year that I was an inch away from. And it killed me, like absolutely killed me because I was an inch away. And instead of sitting there being devastated that we lost, I had this like realization that like I could have gained that inch every single day if I would have just worked, if I would have just tried. And like in that moment, I decided like, I'm not afraid of failure. I'm afraid of regret because regret hurts so much more than failure. Like I've failed over and over and over again since then, like when you pursue something big, as you guys know, like you fail every day because if you're not failing, then you're not pushing the envelope, you're not growing. And I think there's this mindset out there that failure is the worst thing. But like, I feel like for me, not knowing how good I could be, not knowing what I could have done, that fear of regret is actually so much worse than failure. So even though Sab reworded my question, I think like that's why I wanted to say like favorite failure, because I want people to start thinking about failure as a good thing, as a lesson, as look at you three. Like you three are who you are and have achieved what you've achieved because you failed. Like that Michael Jordan quote that I had on my poster as a kid, okay. So building off that, let's start with,
Quick interjection, just so that people know, in the past year that I've known Mish and trained with her, and I would say this, I can say the same exact thing about Gina. I don't know, I haven't played with you, Jazz, but I'm sure you're the same. Like, those are two of the people that I would hands down, like, not even bat an eye. Like, you said that about your college experience. I'm like, who is that person? Like, Mish, Gina, I'm sure Jazz do everything in their power to be like the best pros and control everything. So yeah, it's so cool to be around, I guess, older players that I can look up to, and definitely take Misha's words strongly.
Thanks, Effie. Okay, so I want to start, Jazzy. And I'm going to ask all three of you, but what's one thing you wish you could tell your younger self?
Okay, I've been thinking about this all day. And I think I would just tell baby Jazz, thank you, because she had to go through a lot just finding access to the game, because it was nowhere near as popular and as invested. People didn't invest in women's soccer like they do now. And obviously we still want more, but 20 years ago, no chance. And just thank you for not giving up. Thank you for, when the league folded, going overseas to pursue it. Thank you for all the times you got cut and coaches said you weren't good enough, for not giving up, because now at this point in my career, I get to just have fun and just celebrate the journey that I've been on all this time. And I wouldn't have any of that without baby Jazz. So I would just tell her thank you.
God, I love when you talk about baby Jazz.
Baby
Jazz. Guys, I want to tell you, baby Jazz was literally this big. Like, I could hold baby Jazz in this little hand. That's a side note, but I love baby Jazz. That's a really good one. Thanks, Jazzy. Gina, what about you?
Yeah, my younger self. So I think, I've thought about this question a lot too. And there's a lot of things I would like to tell my younger self, but
yeah,
I think overall, just trusting the process and the journey. I think when I was younger, I was so focused on, doing the right thing and having the right path. I have to do this to be successful. If I don't go here, I'm not going to go into good school, and, I have to be in this club team. And I think for me, just trusting the process and the journey, and there's no one path for anybody. I didn't have like the natural path to become where I am today. And I think just enjoying that and trusting the process and focusing on the controllables. Because like you said, Mish, is, that fear of regret, and just doing everything in your power, but knowing that life is a journey, and your career, and it's unique to you, and just enjoying it. And I think too, one of the other things I try to say is just remembering your why, like why you're doing it. What motivates you as an individual. This is also like advice that I've gotten to, but I don't think I've really realized this until I got older, but just finding your why and what motivates you, your passion, because I think that's what's going to get you through the challenges, the adversities, the ups and downs, and that will give you your foundation. So
yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I think that path one is really big for me. I think, like you said, there's so many things I'd tell my younger self, but I think one thing, especially early on in the pro game, like I had to like fight and claw and battle my way into this league. And I had so much shame early on about like, oh, I wasn't on every youth national team. I wasn't, I didn't have all these accolades coming in. Like, I don't belong here. And then, I was literally, I always say I was like the bottom of the totem pole in Boston. Like, they would have gotten somebody off the street to play in goal if our starters got hurt, like before they would have gotten me. And I used to have so much shame around my path and how hard it was for me to get where I am today. But now it's something I'm so proud of. Now it's something that like I can look at somebody who is struggling, who has their own path, who is going a winding path, who didn't do it like everybody else. And I can say, hey, me too. Like, I did it too. And I think there's so much power in our path. There's so much power in like taking the long way, taking a different way, doing it your own way, like staying true to yourself, going to the school that's best for you, like playing for the team that's best for you. Like, you don't have to do every single thing that everybody else is doing, but like, stay true to your path, like commit to your preparation and like trust the process. I think that's such a big one. What about you, Seb?
Well, I love everything that you all said so far. One thing, and it's something that I work on a lot still, like I tell it to myself every day, but definitely when I was younger, I struggled with this more. I used to be, and I'm still am, a person that thinks about the future a lot. Like, is this going to be good for me? Am I going to be good enough if I do this today? Am I really benefiting myself? Like, I always think about like the what ifs, long-term success and future. And I get scared, like Mish was talking about, like failure earlier on. Like, I get scared if what I'm doing right now is going to lead me to success or failure. And it's just like this daunting thing about the future. And one of the, like, it leads into like the best advice that I've been told. And what I would also tell my younger self is to live in the present and take every day as a present. So it's like kind of like a play on words, but it's so powerful for me, because if you're truly just like living in the present and not focusing on the future or focusing on like the like if this is gonna be good enough, or am I good enough later on, or what's gonna happen at the end of the season, then first of all, you can't control those things. You have no idea what's going to happen. And second of all, it's taking away from your energy of like enjoying the moment and putting like your full effort into the moment. So like, I try my best right now, and would tell my younger self to like live every moment in the present and like be grateful for like what I'm able to do right now, because the next second doesn't matter. But if I'm able to do something right now, like that's amazing. And then you get to make the most out of it. So that's something that I think has been like really pressing on me lately. And I definitely wish I had heard that saying earlier. My sister told me that like a couple of weeks ago, actually, and it really resonates with me.
Yeah. I mean, for what it's worth, Seb, I feel like you live that. You know, I think even with your injuries and things like that last year, like you just attacked what you could do without worrying about what you couldn't. And of course, you know, you go home, that's a different story. You know, we see you at the training ground, but I think that you are somebody who always finds the opportunity. And I think that like, that's incredible for me to watch and for all of us to watch. I'm going to go back to you, Sabrina, with our next question, with this idea of like, what's one way somebody tried to limit you? Like, whether it was a coach, whether it was a team, like, is there something that they said would limit you, or why you wouldn't make it where you are today? Did you ever hear anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard from plenty of coaches and plenty of people that like I'm just not good enough. And I think that's like the number one limiting thing that has like stunted my growth or stunted my mindset to get better or control what I can, because I just take those things to heart, like, and I'm like, oh, they're probably right. And I think that's something that definitely like limited me or limits me on a daily basis, is just like what other people say about like just like about me. And I think, it's very hard for me to like wrap my head around like the difference between like what a coach says about me or other people in terms of I'm not good enough, and then me persevering through that and like defining my own worth and defining my own like value. So I think, just letting other people's negative viewpoints about me and what I'm capable of affect me is like probably the most hindering thing to my growth.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll get back to this in this game, but something I like came to at a certain point is like, realistically, the four of us and, you know, our peers are in the like 1%, you know, of who plays women's soccer, who plays professional soccer, who plays professional sports, period. And, you know, stuff like that used to really, really get to me too, because there's just so many people who want to say why you can't do it. But like, then I would be like, well, yeah, of course they're saying that, because like 99.9% of the time they're right. Like, I want to do what the 0.1% are doing. I want to do what the 1% are doing. So yeah, of course these people, like, the vast majority of people I think who limit people were limited and didn't do it themselves, like couldn't make it and project that onto other people. But I also think it's like the things we're chasing, the things we're currently doing, the things, you know, probably people watching this want to do, only a very small percentage of people can do. So it's like so natural for people to say, find all these reasons why you can't do it. But it's like we're existing as that 1%. And even us as that 1% are constantly limited. And I think it just like, again, kind of like what your sister said, it was kind of like this, you know, light bulb went off on me. Like, yeah, of course, like, because 99% of the time they're right. They're just not right with me. They're just not right with you. They're just not right with Gina. They're just not right with Jazzy, you know? I'm going to let Gina go. And I think I'm excited to hear Jazzy on this because she's got like one of the best perspectives I've like known on this. So I'm excited for both of you.
No, I mean, honestly, that you both said it. I think going through my career, I mean, I've always had those individuals telling me that I'm not good enough. I'll never make it. When I was younger, I had a club coach because I didn't play on like the highest elite club team. I didn't have a lot of exposure, a lot of good talent in my area, and I couldn't travel. You know, I grew up. My mom was a single mom, and we didn't really have the resources to send me to a higher club or a more talented club. So I stayed local, and I remember the club coach just, you know, you have this vision, this dream to play at like a D1 school, you know, a higher school, and then I mentioned the school I wanted to play at, and I was D1, and he's like, "Oh, you'll be a great training partner." I was like, "What? I don't want to be a training partner. Like that's not cool."
Yeah.
I'm like, "You're my club coach. Like, how are you not supporting me?" And I just remember that to this day. And I wish I could go back and somehow have a conversation with him. But I think that kind of motivated me to take my own path. And yes, my path didn't look like everyone else's path. And playing ODP and ECNL, we didn't have that back then, but I just think, just staying true to your path. And if you want to get to the next level, you can. And it's just my perspective, and just finding the people around you to support you in your journey. And I think that's so valuable.
Yeah. We're going to jump to that next because obviously we've all been limited. So I want to hear like what you guys do when you are limited or when you feel like you can't do it. But Jazzy, I want to hear like the ways you were limited and maybe then go from there, what you do about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest things that come to mind is when people see like my stature and I guess in that same vein, like my athleticism, they automatically perceive me as one type of player and try to limit me in like what I'm capable of doing. And the way I view myself is often different times than them. And I think I love it. Like I live in it. Nothing fuels me more than when people underestimate or doubt what I'm capable of doing, because I know what I am capable myself. And I feel like I have two really good stories. Like in college, my college coach, my freshman year, I was challenging them and, you know, trying to grow as a player. And I had high expectations of myself and my team. And I had a meeting with them and he was like, "You're not as good as you think you are. This isn't U17 soccer anymore." And I was like, "Okay, I'll show you." And went on, and together we accomplished great things with that program. And fast forward 10 years, I saw him for the first time since I graduated. And past preseason, and he came over and said thank you, because the success that I had under his coaching in college led him to amazing coaching opportunities. And he said, "I wouldn't be where I am today without you." So I felt like, thank you, but also like, thank me for believing in myself and not listening to you. And together we've both been able to accomplish amazing things. And I have like a million stories like that with coaches in the NWSL. Like I've played for 6 different teams, and the goal I talked about before came off of the back of a coach saying, "Well, I think you're great, but you can't score goals." Well, I scored on you and we won. So I love it. I literally, when people underestimate me and try to limit me, because nothing fuels me more than that.
Where do you think that, I have always loved this about you, and also that coach that said you couldn't score goals also told you in the off season to grow. Remember?
I forgot.
He asked what she could do in the off season to work on, and he said, "Can you grow 5 inches?" And she, you know, respectfully, you know, said thanks, but no thanks, and proved him wrong and found success. And I think, you know, I lived with Jazz for 3 years, and I've watched her like take criticism and that's going to happen. And there's productive criticism, and then there's, grow 5 inches when you're, 30 years old. Like, that's not happening, and it's not necessary. So I think my question for you is, like, what do you do? Like, so I think you're one of the most naturally, like, confident people, like, outside looking in. But I think, you've not always been able to just do that so naturally, right? Like, what do you do? Like, what's that process for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with my relationship with my family and how supportive they are, and how at our core, when I have 2 older brothers, and so when we were younger, we just loved to play, and they always picked me first on my team, and so on their team. And so I think growing up, I had this kind of instilled in me that, like, these big athletic boys always picked me first, and if I'm good enough for them, then I'm good enough for anybody. And I think I carried that through in times where I feel less than that. They're the first people I call, my brothers or my parents, and they just remind me that like it doesn't matter what they think. Like, we love you, we support you, we've been on this journey with you, and we know you can do it. And I think a lot of people maybe don't have that environment, and if they don't have it when they're younger, I think there are ways to create it. You can lean in on teachers, guidance counselors, mentors, coaches, friends, colleagues, and create that own network for yourself of just positivity and support to help you at times when you maybe can't do it yourself. And I think that's probably been the greatest asset that I've been able to lean on in tough times in my career.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. And Gina, I feel like that I want to hear what you do or what you've done when you've been, like, limited, but it sounds like that's similar to what you did. Like, you find a network that does see you. I think that for me is something that I actually just learned recently. Like, Jazz, you knew my dad well. Like, my dad thought I was the best thing in the entire world. Basketball, soccer, driving, like, there's just nothing I could do wrong. And I would be like, Dad, you're ridiculous. Like, you don't see me, like, you're biased. But when my dad passed, I realized, like, he was actually such a source of confidence for me. Like, that having someone that no matter how well I played that day, how, whatever I did wrong that day, however hard I was on myself, he saw me. And I think for a long time, I thought he just had this really biased love for me. And of course he did, but there's also something to having this network of people, whether it's coaches, family, friends, brothers, sisters, whatever community you make for yourself that sees you as you actually are, at your highest self, you're the best version of you. Like, so you can lean on that and you can see yourself through them sometimes. Like, it's not something, this journey is lonely enough. Like, it's a tough process, but I think when you can have those, like, that tight knit group that you can lean on, I think, for me, I realize how important that is. What about you, Gina and Sab? I want to hear what you guys do, to get through those hard times, to get through when you've been limited or things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are all great points, things that I practice and have practiced. And I think too, remembering that we're not like it's a sport is what we do. It's not who we are, Yeah. And I think we've talked about this a lot as well, is that, our sport doesn't define us as individuals. Our coaches don't define us. Our teammates don't define us. And it's being able to separate yourself from your sport in whatever way that is, through your community, through positive energy, or, I like to say, kind of what we take into our bodies, and what we can control. And it's that energy. Who do you have around you? And being in an environment where you thrive. And I think so many times we go back to, okay, I want to play for the best team. I want to play for this team because I have to be good. I have to reach this next level. But it's like, just enjoy the game. Find an environment, a team, a support system around you where you're enjoying the game, you're thriving, you're becoming better. And that's, I think, the most important thing. And finding what it is that gives you that confidence in yourself as a human being, and gives you that balance and that support. And I mean, faith for me has always been something along my path and my journey, which I've always leaned into, but it's just creating that foundation and that support system around you, for sure.
I think that's perfect. What about you, Seb?
Well, I love, again, what all you guys said, but I think there's 2 things that come to mind. One is like when there's like a limiting thing against me, or like an outside factor that's like, yeah, just like limiting my growth or potential, I just go back to like my roots of like tapping into like the little Sabrina that grew up playing soccer, and like just like thinking about why I play soccer. And that honestly kind of like gets me away from like all like the chatter or like the noise that's away, and just like brings me back to just like having fun with the ball and like having fun playing actually soccer, and away from like all the BS of that, like I guess being a professional comes with. But like I just think about that, like I have a choice to either like leave an environment that might be toxic, and it, like all environments are toxic to some extent in the pro world, or I just continue to like bring myself back to like why I love playing the game. And that sometimes kind of just like blocks out the outside noise and the limiting factors. And then I think Gina mentioned this, and even Jazz, you mentioned this, but just like focusing on like one small thing that I can control in that moment. So let's say like I'm having a bad day and someone like a coach told me that I'm not good enough, then I like, that's something that I can't control. His perspective is, or her perspective is something that I can't control, but I just go to do, I like actively find something that I can do in that moment or that day that is something I can control and that makes me feel good. And that gives me back like my ownership of like my own journey and my path. So that's something that I just like actively do in the moment.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. I think an idea of like sports, it's like very clear wins and losses on a scoreboard, you know, and like as a forward, as a goalkeeper, you made saves, you got scored on, you know, as a defender, you got beat, you didn't get beat. And I think there's so many wins and losses within the game that are naturally there. And I think this idea, and I think this is kind of what you were saying, Sab, like, can you create your own wins and losses? Like what makes you win a day? Like for me, if I go into every session and it's not like, hey, if I get a shutout today, I win. And if I don't get a shutout, I lose. Because that's, what if Sab, like she didn't pick up today, hits a banger off a volley, upper 90? Like that's a great shot. Like I'm not going to make that save. I don't know that many people would have made that save, but like, was I set? Like, did I do the things that like help me have the best chance of success? What do I consider a win? Because I think too many times we look externally to win and lose, where like we can decide our own wins and losses. And I think that's what you're saying, Sab. Like you can control, like maybe your win today is you take 20 good touches and you stay out there till you take 20 good touches, then you won. Like you improved, you did something. And I think, trying to take ownership of that process like really does help. You guys have been awesome. We have a lot of questions in here and I'm going to try and get to as many as I can in the next like 10 minutes, but I'm probably going to pull a question that applies to like one of you the most, have you answer, and then we'll go to the next one. Okay. Thank you guys also for everybody watching, for all your questions. These are awesome. Some repeats that I'll try to get to for sure. I'm going to say, well, Sab, I think you're a really good person for this. How do you get motivated to practice and train on your own? And I would say like, what do you do now? But also like, what did you do when you were 10, 15, like younger? Like what motivated you to train the way you do?
I don't like, since I was little and like to this day, I feel like I'm like obsessed with finding like what my own potential is. And that like drive and like that eagerness or curiosity to see like how much I can like push myself or how much I can get better at something or like challenge myself and whatever, like mind, body, like whatever it is, it's just like, so, I don't know. It just like, it fuels me so much. And like, it's just so like curious. I'm like, wow, like, can I do it? Like, and it's like a self-challenge every day. And I think that's honestly what like pulls me out of bed and like helps me like stay motivated and train on my own and go out early or stay extra or like some like majority of times like people say that I'm crazy because I like wake up at 5 a.m. and I'm like at the gym at like 5 and they're like, why don't you just sleep in? I'm just like, I go to bed early because I'm like so curious about like what I can do at the gym in the next morning or like what I can do at pickup. And like, that curiosity to just tap into my own potential probably is like my number one fueling factor. And I think I didn't know I had that as a younger kid, but I feel like that's been what's like the driving force so far in my life.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I definitely see that every day. Gina, this is kind of piggybacking off this, and I feel like this is something that would like be really good for you is like, how do you approach your, when you were playing, like, how did you approach your off season? Like, did you have systems? Like, how did you plan your week? Like, how did you, like, when you're not responsible for like a team training you? So like, whether it's you're doing extra stuff during a season or in an off season, like, what was your approach? What was your routine? Like, what?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was overseas, my off season was pretty short because I came home for the summer and winter time, only a couple of weeks. But the NWSL, we had a longer off season, and I think for me, like Sab said too, I was just also very curious about reaching my potential and just getting better every day. And I did make it a priority to put myself first, and because this was my career and my job, but I was on my own a lot of times. I didn't really have an organization or a group of players to train with. And, there's a lot of creativity that goes involved, but a lot of, research and figuring out what tools do I have to use at my exposure, or, with my garage, or just being creative and finding ways to train on my own. But I actually was able to write down on my notebook and kind of lay out a plan on what I wanted to focus each day, and putting down smaller goals. Of course, we had a plan from our sports performance coach, but then individually things that I wanted to focus on that I could kind of tailor to myself, and writing it down on like a weekly goal sheet.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'm similar. I feel like for me, I really like try to take a day before every week, kind of like revisit what my goals were for last year, like last week, tap back into them, and then like structure my week to make sure that I'm fitting them in there. I think like that structure, that idea, like having a clear vision, being intentional, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, I think that's a great answer. Jazzy, there's a few of these questions, they're worded differently, but kind of like, what do you do in response to a mistake? So either you've like maybe so there's one that's like, you played a bad first half. What do you do for the second half? But also I would ask you, like, you just missed a goal you should have scored. Like you made a bad pass, it causes something bad for your team. Like, what's your response? Like, what are you saying to yourself? What are you doing? Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think the first thing I do is like release that negative energy. And some people may have an opposing opinion on this, but I think it's therapeutic to just be like, like get it out, because then it's gone. It's out of me. I've let it go. And then immediately I think if it's like a pass or something, I'm like, just connect your next pass. Or if I miss a pass and I have the opportunity to win it back, I'm like not even thinking about the fact that I gave the ball away. I'm just immediately trying to win it back. Or if it's like a shot that I've missed, I am working extra hard to win the ball back defensively to help the team, because I'm like, oh shoot, like that could have been an important opportunity for us, but I can work a little bit harder defensively to secure the ball to make sure the other team doesn't get an opportunity. And mistakes are going to happen. Like nobody perfect ever. But I think it's like we've been talking about all evening of just like having a positive relationship with those mistakes and not being so hard on yourself, because mistakes are going to happen, and just being kinder to yourself. Like, and I think that I do a really good job of just like accepting that I'm flawed and that I have flaws, and not dwelling on that, and just like overemphasizing and overhyping myself up with the things that I know that I'm good at. And that you can do in training on your own with your team every day. So that way, when you get to the game and those mistakes do happen, it's easier for you to bounce back from them.
Yeah, that's an incredible answer. And I think it applies to all positions, like just like how can you get back in the game like right away? And I think my follow-up question, and there's a couple similar ones in there, is like, what do you so you feel that negative emotion in the game, like, or, you know, you express it, you feel it. Is it gone for you then? And then do you revisit it after the game? Is it like gone? Like, what's that process like?
Yeah, I think it's gone for sure in that moment, but win or lose, tie, if I think I've had the greatest game, scored a hat trick, there's still room for improvement. And I'm somebody who likes to revisit it as soon as possible so I can then put it to bed. So I will watch the games back the same night. I can't sleep anyway, and it's fresh. The decision making is fresh, and I remember the plays because I just did them. And so I'll watch the game back, I'll pause it, I'll reassess. Do I think I made the right decision and it was like a technical mistake, or did I make the wrong decision and I need to ask questions when we do film the team? And for me, I think that's really helpful because then I'm not waiting. I don't have anxiety when we do our team video. I know what mistakes I made already. I've made peace with them. I'm going to hold myself accountable. And now when we go into film, I can learn and I can take that criticism with an open mind because I agree or I didn't understand and I'm ready to learn. And so I think for me, just like being able to watch the game back and sometimes I can't get it the same night, but just like as soon as possible is really helpful.
Yeah, I think there's so much in that. I think it's the idea of like, feel it, let it go, get present again. What can I do next? But then this idea of just not like, oh, well, it's over. It's not like you don't care. You know, it's not like you're not trying to get better. It's like, no, you have the rest of this game to be at your best, not to harp on the past, not to live in the past, but to be present, like Zab's talking about earlier. Be your best, take your next opportunity, do what you can to affect the game positively, to help your team win. But then you're using that process later on, you know, probably in a less emotional state or a different emotional state. We've had many a late night after a game pretty emotional, but, you know, like able to, you know, watch and learn and then like you all said, like, get better because of that failure, get better because of that mistake, get better because of that mishap. So I think there's like so much in there that I want people to hear, because for you, it's become a natural process, but it's because you've done it over and over and over again. Okay, I think we have time. I'm going to do one more question, but I'm going to have all three of you answer it. We'll start with you, G. What is a mental skill or strategy in general that you use that you believe helps you in the game and like in and out of the game? So it could be something you do in a game. It could be something you do off the field that helps in the game, like just anything to help your like mental health, mental performance, mental resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big component of just like routines. Something I still practice now is just getting into a routine of mostly just like my day, but I think that's kind of where we learn to, you know, perform on the field. So is it off the field, you know, and how do we think off the field and getting into a routine? So, you know, I take a lot of time to myself, maybe in the mornings where I really just practice a little bit of like, you know, meditation and visualization where I can kind of just have time to myself, setting my intentions for the day and just being present. That's where you learn to be present in life, and then you'll be able to translate that onto the field. And so coming back quickly from a mistake and getting into the moment back again, like that'll be easier because you're practicing it off the field. So I think for me, it's just, that's been really important of just like being present, intentional off the field in my days and my mornings, and trying to setting that intention for the day in my interactions with people and what I'm trying to do, just to be who I am, and do like that visualization meditation, because then that will translate better on the field when I'm actually in like a high stake environment.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. And I think you said it too a bit, Jazzy, like these skills, this ability to handle hard things and perform at your best, like they don't just happen when you're in a 90-minute game in front of 20,000 people, you know, like it's work you do off the field. And it's, you know, little moments every morning, not just one time for 2 hours, you practice it and it's there, but it's these consistent habits you build and the way you treat yourself, talk to yourself, the things you do off the field that translate on the field, but also, you know, make you better humans, make you, you know, good in everyday life, not just soccer. Sab, what do you have?
I love like habits and routine as well, but something that has really helped me and then I started to implement this past year, and I think it's been like a game changer for me, is kind of like I'm a very structured person, so everything in my life always has to be like X's and O's, and I need to know exactly what I'm doing, stuff and everything like that. But it oftentimes creates like a lot of like mental stress and like too much pressure on myself to get things done at a certain time or a certain way. So I've been doing this thing where like every day I create a block of time, and it's still a structure, but I create a block of time that's like unstructured time. Like I like label it in my brain as like, you do whatever you want, whatever you feel like. There's no commitments, responsibilities. And I make sure that every day I have like unstructured time just to like do whatever I want and not be like pressured to do something. And I think that has given me a lot of like mental break, and allowed me to then like be more focused throughout the day on other things, and also like look forward to like having like a break, which is nice.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And we are so weirdly similar. It freaks me out sometimes, but okay. And Jazzy, what do you got?
I actually think this is something that I'm bad at, and I like try to work on. But living with me, that it's hard for me. Like, I don't like journaling. I cannot meditate. I shouldn't say cannot. It's very, very difficult for me to meditate. Like, these are things that like I'm terrible at. But in the same breath, I think naturally when it comes to playing soccer, I have so much joy playing that I think my best thing is just to get me to my like base level, chill, happy state. And so I think to do that, going to games and pretty much all day, I try to do nothing. Like, I lounge, I'm super chill. I will go for a walk. I will listen to like old school R&B music. I don't need to be hype. I'm already excited to play. Like, I need to be chill. And so that way, when I do get to the game and there is extra anxiety and everything rushing, like I've already set myself up to not be so reactive to all that exterior noise and everything, that so I can just be me on the field. And I'm not going to lie, I have not really committed to trying to be better at meditating or journaling.
I know, that's why you're on here. I'm going to cut you off because I think it's important. I think, Gina and Sabrina and I, we're obviously different. We have different approaches and things like that, but we're pretty diligent. We're pretty structured. We're pretty like type A, we stay on top of things. And again, we go about it differently. And I think that's why they're so valuable on this call. And like the three of us have different things, but I think what you bring to this call, what I wanted you to bring to this call, which you did, is this idea that like, it doesn't need to look, just like we said earlier, one path, one way. And like everything you just said, like I watched you try to meditate. You opened your eyes 10 seconds later and said, my thoughts, I hear my thoughts. And, that's a talk for a different time. But, like you set yourself up, you have systems in place. They just don't feel like systems because you've made them what work for you. And I think that's the important part. Like you listening to R&B, you tuning out the game, you going for, a walk. Some would call that meditative. Like that's you finding what works for you. And I think that's what's so important is like, it doesn't have to look like I do it. It doesn't have to look like Sabrina does it, Gina does it, Jazz does it. It's like find ways to work for you. So if you're super excited for a game, what is a consistent way you can bring yourself back down? Like if you're a hard worker and you're like crazy diligent and you overdo it and you don't know when to stop, like, can you make a break for yourself where you're totally free? Like Jazz is great at resting. Sabrina is terrible at resting, like that, but they both find ways within them that makes it work, that gets them to the state they need to get to. They get work when it's time to work and they get rest when it's time to rest. And I think like the biggest takeaway I would like want anyone to get from this is like this idea that like it's always going to look different, but there's strategies and skills for everyone. And if you're doing the right ones, just like Jazzy, like it doesn't feel like strategies and skills. Like Sabrina, it might sound like a crazy day to some people what she's doing, but that's what feels good to her. That's what's natural to her, to get up at 5 and do those things. What Jazzy's doing is natural to her. What Gina does is something that fits into what fulfills her and works for her. So I think like the biggest thing with mental skills and strategies is that there's such a wide range that have the same intentions, but it's like, can you find what can you commit to every day? What can be flawless, like seamlessly part of your day every day? Okay, I've taken a lot of your time, and I'm really grateful for you guys. I'm grateful that everyone has forgiven me for my YouTube live failure. This will be recorded and probably on YouTube at some point, but thank you guys all for tuning in. Thank you for your questions. Soccer Resilience is an incredible resource for anyone wanting to pursue mental resilience. There are incredible pros like these three on there, people with a lot of experience, and their Soccer Resilience FC if you want to just check some of it out on your own. And like we talked about, like find what works for you, learn about it. You know, you have so many resources there between people and just information on that site that you can access. And then you can see what works for you, work with somebody individually, work in a group, go with a team session. Regardless of how you do it, if you don't invest in this mental side and the mental pieces of this game, you'll never know how good you can be. And so for all the work and all the investment and everything you guys put into it, just, like Sab said, like find out every day how good you can be, because that's the joy in this. Like you want to see the best version of yourself. Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Thank you guys.
Great.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Betos
everyone.
is awesome. FYI, Michelle Betos is awesome. Bye.
Okay.
You go, girl.
Everybody mute your mics. Good night, everyone. Bye, guys.
The recording has stopped.